Bad teamwork is bad business. We know everybody wants to have great teaming at work. We're going to talk about how you can do that, and we're going to Martinize something that irritates every single person when you go out to a restaurant.
Joining us now is author Daren Martin.
Culture is the game. If you don't change the culture, you don't change the company.
Great cultures over the course of 10 years will yield a 746% increase in your net profit.
Holy moly!
One person in the top 1% is worth 12 in the bottom 1%. Called the culture archetype for a reason.
We need to get into it.
Okay. So great to be back in studio. How you doing, Elise?
I am great. Fantastic.
Awesome. So we got to give a little bit of a shout out to all of the people who have been so supportive of the show. You guys are just crushing it. We've got some phenomenal reviews. We love reading them on iTunes. People are subscribing on iTunes. They're subscribing on YouTube. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for sharing this. You can share this show right now and have some other people chime in. So I think what we're talking about today is one of the top things that every time I go into a company, there's a lot of curiosity about, a lot of interest in, because team is one of the hardest things to get right at a company, but it's one of the most important things to get right, because if your team's not functioning well together, then you've got everything kind of pulling against itself. What's the old, a house divided against itself cannot stand. Well, think about a team that is divided against itself.
Sounds painful.
Oh, yeah. But I've seen some doozies. I've worked with companies where two top people don't even talk to each other. We were hearing an example earlier this week about a guy goes into work at a company and they would actually pass notes because they hated each other so much that they
would pass notes at work.
They would pass
you
notes
need
saying,
to put
you need
the
to
paper in the copier.
Yes.
Here you go.
Exactly. Because they weren't going to speak to each other face to face.
What about the ones when the guy is sending the messenger? Please tell Bob that I am not willing to proceed. And he can hear him. Right, because they're like in the similar next door cubicles.
I love it when you're having to go to a third party. You've got an intermediary that you just hate each other that much. Right. So this is not what our show's about. But people always say, well, you don't have to like the people you work with, but you just have to play like you do or get along. No, nonsense. Teamwork.
I mean, you don't have to do anything ever. I mean, have to is such a harsh word.
That's true.
But,
we're eliminating that word from our vocabulary.
Ideally, on a team, you would get along. You would. You're all going for the same ultimate goal, right?
You hope so,
right?
But I mean, how many times have we seen at companies where they are pulling in different directions?
Yeah.
It's like you got a tug of war going on, but half of your team is pulling for the other team. Doesn't work that way. So I've seen all sorts of disaster stories. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on those, but I'm going to butcher this quote. I told it to you earlier this week. But
I know it.
What you know? Okay, let's hear it.
If you want to get there fast, go alone, and if you want to get there sustainably. I forget the last part.
I thought I was going to butcher it.
I have it.
If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go
that's what it was.
together.
I was thinking of sustainability when it comes to companies, and the word was far for the quote.
You got distracted by your own brain there. That's awesome. So here's what I want you to picture. Okay. You ready?
I'm ready.
You ready for this?
I'm ready.
You and everybody picture along with me. Okay. You're having surgery tomorrow. Okay, you've been in some significant pain.
Is it serious?
It's well. Let me say. Okay, I'm getting there.
Okay, sorry.
So you're having surgery tomorrow. You're having some significant pain that, if the surgery goes great, will completely be eliminated. Okay. If the surgery does not go great, then you could end up in twice the amount of pain that you're in. Okay.
Okay.
So there's going to be 2 physicians in the room and 3 or 4 support people, nursing, so on and so forth. That it takes a lot to get a surgery going.
And these are the only 2 outcomes I have.
Yes, that's the only 2 outcomes. It's not going to go medium well. It's just going to go either horribly wrong or perfectly right.
Go well.
So, is it okay if those 6 people that really your life is kind of in their hands, if they just had a big falling out that week and they are really not talking to each other? They're not communicating. Is that okay?
No.
No, why?
It's scary.
Yeah.
Imagine imagine if the doctor and the nurse have to pass a note before she hands him the scalpel?
Yes, absolutely. So I don't, I've never been in the surgery room other than on the table, but I've got to imagine there are scenarios like that. Is it okay if just even a couple of the team members are at odds with each other and they're being very competitive and they're trying to outdo each other, but not in a good way? Is that okay?
That is not okay.
Yeah. Is it okay if
they're opening me up? Is that okay?
No. What do you want? What do you want that team to walk in? You want, let me ask you a different one. Is it okay if they walk into that surgery and they have different objectives and agendas, and one is thinking, oh, well, we should probably do the surgery, take it this way, and the other one's going like, no, we should do this, and they're not clear on what they're about to do when they go in there?
Oh, that's not okay.
Okay, bad teamwork. It's not okay in surgery. We wouldn't want it if we were getting ready to have surgery, and it's not okay if it's going on at work. How many projects fail? I've asked people this. I've been teaching for a long, long time. And consistently when I ask, tell me if you have ever had the experience where a project did not go as well as it could because the team was just not functioning, or there was discord on the team, or there was a lack of mutual commitment. What percentage of the time do people raise their hand? 100% of the time. Everybody has served in kind of that capacity. So team is something that if you want to get your culture right, you better make sure you're getting your team right. So one of my favorites, I don't think you've seen the movie. I've been talking about it some when I speak.
I know what it is.
Do you? What is it? Is this like you knowing the quote earlier? Is this on the same?
Yeah, I think you're being mean.
Hate mail's coming. Don't be mean to Elise.
Yeah.
So raise your hand if you've seen The Miracle on Ice. Phenomenal movie. It's about the real events. We're going to watch it. I also want to watch the documentary about that. I can't think of a better movie other than maybe Hoosiers. Remember the Titans? Okay, I'm coming up with all sorts of sports movies.
I think that if we're going to watch anything sportsy, we have to wait till after the World Cup because my sport card is full.
Okay, and your team actually won a game, so we're happy to hear that.
Saudi Arabia against Egypt.
Yeah. So, it's an interesting point though, because when we start talking about team, everybody immediately jumps to sports. We go to sports, and I'm about to share an example of that. So, Miracle on Ice. I love the movie. I love the setup for it, and basically they had been playing somewhat lackluster in the Olympics and in the kind of the lead up to the Olympics. And the coach gets them out there after a game. I think they had just tied Sweden, Finland. I'm getting my teams mixed up. But this is the U.S. team, U.S. hockey team. And he gets them out there. They come off of the ice, and he says, no, what are you doing? Get back out there. They just played this whole game. And he makes them go back through doing what they call suicides. I don't know what they call them in hockey, but they had a different name for it based on the coach. At any rate, so they're just wiped out, and he is making them skate.
Brutal. That sounds really brutal.
They're puking.
On ice, when they're wearing all those big outfits, they're probably sweating.
Actually, an NHL player loses on average
really bad in there.
9 pounds a game. We actually used to have a couple of NHL
9 pounds a game. I'm joining hockey.
Living in our building. So at any rate, so they're out there skating. They're puking. The lights go off. He's still sending them go, and he's lecturing them the whole time. And basically, what he's lecturing them about, you had all of these college superstars that obviously got picked to be on the Olympic team. And one of the lines he says is, the name on the front of your jersey is a hell of a lot more important than the name on the back. So big, huge scene. Finally, they're getting ready to be sent again. They're all exhausted. And Mike Eruzione says, he calls out from the line and says, Mike Eruzione, I'm from Michigan. And the coach says, who do you play for, Mike? And he goes, I play for the United States of America. And the coach goes, that'll be all, gentlemen, and walks off. So the rest of the story, that was a galvanizing moment for them when they decided to quit. They were actually team fight. They would fight with each other because they were adversaries at the college level. So they were constantly just pulling against each other. They go on to win. It's been called one of the greatest, maybe the greatest moment in sports history, when they actually beat the Russians, who had won, 5 out of the 6 last Olympics, and keep in mind at that point, Olympics are coming around. Well, I guess they still are, but coming around every 4 years.
But I think greatest event in sports history is, it's depending on the person. I mean, Saudi Arabia beat Egypt. I mean, in the World Cup.
Let's just say one thing. You're an authority on a whole lot of things, but sports is not one of them.
Yeah.
Maybe when it comes to World Cup.
It's still about perspective.
So we've got the same thing. I mentioned a couple other movies. I mentioned Remember the Titans, where race was getting in the way of people being able to win. Hoosiers, just the fear of, could they beat this bigger, faster, stronger team? And what it came down to in every case was until they established their team. Team is the vital element in any kind of company culture. So I'm, we're big. Are we NASCAR fans? Yeah.
I think they're interesting.
I mean, we don't actually watch it like on TV and everything, but we love going to the event.
But before we switch to that, I wanted to make a comment about your story. Because you said that he said to them that the name on the front, which was the United States, and the name on the back was the name on the front more important than the name on the back. But I think when it comes to company culture, the name on the front and the back are both equally important. We're moving into...
Absolutely. And we're going to do a whole show on first name, last name. It's going to be, I think it's going to be a new concept to 99% of you.
Now.
Okay.
We'll do a whole new show. Okay.
That one. And you've got lots of stories to share. The Wipro story, some stuff that we were just sharing in Houston to a big group of CIOs. By the way, we got the numbers back on that. Straight 5s.
Yeah.
5 out of 5.
Well, that was a beautiful keynote you did. It was a dinner keynote, and it was so intimate. Even though it was 60 people.
Yeah,
They were all laughing with you, and they were in the stories with you. It was a very beautiful.
So these were C-level executives from BP and the FBI and Shell and Rackspace, and by the way, we connected well with a lot of these companies, IBM, and we're going to take a little trip down to see Rackspace, but stay tuned for that.
Stay tuned.
So, but one of the things we talked about a lot in that keynote was this idea of building a team. So there's an old Japanese proverb that says, none of us is as smart as all of us. And when people operate in these little independent units, right, and they're on a team, they're supposed to be working together, it's an absolute breakdown. How many of you have ever been on a team where you did 90% of the work and everybody else just kind of coasted? You ever had that happen?
I think a lot of us have had that happen.
Yeah, and especially if you're a high achiever, right?
Yeah, especially if you're a high achiever. We already know this. It's the 80-20 rule. And the high achievers, again, are the ones that the company says that person will get it done, so I'm going to give them my important project because I know it's going to be delivered on time. And Suzuki or John or whatever their names are, they do work. We'll just
Ajay, Billy, Susan.
They do work, but they're not reliable. And instead of weeding out the bad parts of your team and getting all high performers, we're keeping everybody, and then stressing out the high performers who go and build a company that looks like yours and take over.
So I say you want to build, talk about this in a company of owners, you want to build a team, not a family, okay? Because in a family, you have to put up with crazy Uncle Ned, as I talk about in the book.
You don't get to choose your family.
Yeah, so he's, crazy Uncle Ned is showing up at the family reunion. He's getting a little plastered. He's, slapping people on the rear, whatever, doing very inappropriate things.
Goodness gracious.
But next year you go, oh, it's the family reunion. We have to invite Uncle Ned.
And you're like, oh, do we have to invite him?
A team is not like that, right? A team is very much about who's on there. Are we winning? And if you're not winning, then you're probably not going to be on the team very long.
And you need to revisit that at all times. I mean, like I was saying, you revisit your office supply bill every year when you're an admin, just to make sure you're getting the best deal. So why wouldn't you revisit your staff? We do that through evaluations.
Yes.
Obviously. But I think the old evaluation system isn't very good.
We're going to do a whole show on that as well, because that's broken. But what a great segue, because what I just started to say is we evaluate. How do we evaluate coaches of teams? How do we evaluate them?
How well the team performs.
Yeah,
right?
Whether they're winning or not.
Right.
We don't do this at a company level. we should be holding managers, people accountable for how well the team is doing. What about not just the individual people under them, but how are they doing as an aggregate, as a whole? So I mentioned NASCAR. We got to get back to NASCAR. So we've had the privilege, opportunity of going to a couple of NASCAR events and having hot passes. Thank you. Little shout out to Keith Fry for hooking us up there. And so we are down in the inner circle. You get to see the cars when they first come out on the track. It's just crazy cool. It's so cool.
So cool. I got really close. With the camera, and Keith was like, Daren, the lug nuts come off and they shoot everywhere. And you were like, Elise, I'm gonna block you. And you put your hand right in front of the camera, and I looked at you and I said, get out of my shot. I'm getting a shot.
I
might
to
lose my
protect you, and
face
you're
when
like,
I'm
get
getting
out
the
of
shot.
the way.
You know, that's a dedicated
I'll take my
cameraman.
I'll take my wife keeping her teeth over getting the right shot. So one of the cool things about being down there is you get to watch the pit crews. The pit crews are
phenomenal,
crazy. So watch this little video about what it looks like and why it's important to have teamwork on a NASCAR pit crew. It is so incredible to watch a pit crew in action. I went to a NASCAR event. It's dizzying. They run out there, they change 4 tires, they pump 180 pounds of fuel in there, they wipe off the windshield, they get that car back out on the road in 12 seconds. Now, what if one of the people changing the tire is not able to do it in 12 seconds, but it takes them a minute and a half? How long does it take before that car gets back out on the track? A minute and a half. You're only as strong as your weakest link, your weakest performer. You got to make sure everybody's up at the right speed. Otherwise, low performers will drag your organization down, slow everybody down. You don't want that. Have an organization of high performers. Expect it, build it, do it, insist on it, and watch that run. Awesome.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so by the way, a lot of these videos that we're showing, the Beach Rail ones, the Company of Owner ones, they're all available on our YouTube channel. So if you've got something you want to show it to your team, you want to use it, that's just up there. That's just on us. So, and great job. You shoot all of those. You do a phenomenal job.
Thank you.
Great teamwork.
I shoot, edit, and produce.
Shoot, edit, and produce.
That's right.
And give talking points.
So,
when you think about NASCAR, though, as I described, they're shooting, it's 180 pounds of fuel. They're changing 4 tires. They've got boom, boom, boom in 12 seconds. It's dizzying to watch. I've heard that Formula One is even more cool. So if someone's got the Formula One hookup. We now have the Daytona 500 hookup for next year.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to get to that if we can. But if one of the members of the tire changers can actually change, if 3 of them can change a tire in 12 seconds and it takes the 4th person a minute and a half, how long does it take to get the car back out on the track?
A minute and a half.
Yeah. So as I said in the video, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And the team ought to be rallying around those weak links. First of all, I mean, if it's a performance problem or it's you got the wrong person, wrong spot, maybe you just have a low performer who's not interested in improving, manage them out.
But yeah, but it could be someone that just needs training, someone who needs to be informed about the culture, someone who hasn't been taught what they need on that team. I mean, in football and in sports, we know that everybody knows what's expected of them on that team, right? So they know. And a lot of times in companies, you hire someone and they don't know, they know what their job is, but their job description, right? But they don't know what their expectation is for that team. What are my team, requirements? Like, what am I supposed to be doing to be helping my team?
So one of the reasons we use sports analogies, because it's very obvious, we want to win a championship, or we want to, although I think you can have a lot of micro goals going into that we're going to have a certain attitude, we're going to play a certain way, we're going to play consistent. We actually saw this. There's a lot of criticism because there was some implication that comments were made by a local Dallas sports team that will go unnamed about sort of tanking at the end of the season. And I don't know if we ever talked about this, but hey, if we lose a few games, that's okay because we'll get higher up in draft picks and we'll be able to draft a better player. And, first of all, if you're a fan of the particular league, the NBA, if you're a fan of the NBA and you're watching those games, then people are not playing all out. this is probably also a separate show. We've got plenty of shows.
We need to start writing them down as we come up with them.
That poison doesn't begin at the end of the year when things have not gone well that year. That bleeds in at the very beginning of the year. When you don't start that year saying we're going to win, we're going to win, and if we don't win, we're going to leave it all out there on the table. So teams have to be the same way. So, but it's obvious for sports teams. Sometimes you get teams and they're like, what are we here for? What are we supposed to be doing? They don't really have clear objectives.
But if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Thank you, Henry Ford. I love that quote, actually.
Right. So as long as your team, if the energy in your team is that well, we're never going to be able to create an app that's going to take over the world, blah blah blah, but we're going to try anyways. Of course, you're never going to do it.
All right. So I've just given a couple. We've just given a couple. You gave one. I gave one. Bad attitude, and then not clear objectives. What are some team killers? What are some things that kill teams?
Gossip.
Ooh, yeah, undermining. Yeah, gossip.
Right? You should it's an obvious business thing. You never talk about your customers to your customers. So if you're having a problem with this customer, you don't talk about it with your other customer. You shouldn't be talking about them. Period. It's bad business, right? So why do you allow your team members to talk about other team members in the group? You're
Not
breeding
cool.
this bad, and it's.
So I know we're going to talk about some fixes and things, but I'm going to give you one right now, even though we're still on the subject of things that tear teams down. But we have a rule that was implemented, at least for me personally, in our family, and I don't mean this family, I mean extended family, where if you've got an issue with someone,
we only have one family.
You need to go talk to that person. Don't come tell me. When somebody comes and says, hey, can I talk about Kathy? Because I'm having some real issues, and I'm curious if you might be having the same issues with her. And, I'm kind of thinking that, why are you talking to me? Why are you not talking to Kathy, which is the way it should be. But nothing will tear a team down quicker than getting these divisions. By the way, we're specifically not talking about silos today, because silos have to do with department to department, different areas of the company, marketing versus sales, distribution versus manufacturing, all of that. That's something that we will get into, because that is another major issue in companies. But we're talking about teams that are supposed to be cohesive, that are pulled together.
Because you can have multiple teams in the same department. You can have, actually I've seen this in a company where they have different sales teams in the department, and they're all going, they're competing for that ultimate prize. That's
Absolutely.
fine. Competition is good, but they hate each other, and they're all, at the end of the day, they're all one big team. They're little teams and big teams, and they all need to be communicating.
Absolutely. So totally forgot what I was going to say. Oh no, barriers to teamwork.
Right.
So we've given a couple. I'll give you another one, which is taking one person on the team taking all the credit, right? And just sort of going, well, it was really me that was responsible, instead of everybody getting there together, everybody crossing the finish line together.
I think that has to come from the culture. It has to come from the culture. You have to hire the people right for your culture who are on that team standpoint. Like, Southwest, when they hire, they look for smiling, they look for saying thank you, they look for, certain things. So you want to look for team players. You want to look for people who, I'm allowed to be excited of my personal accomplishments or something that I really did bring to the team. But at the same time, it's always a team effort at the end of the day. Because I can't get that letter out unless admin buys the stamps, and I can't get my sales booklet printed if we so-and-so didn't put the copy paper in.
I talk about this in the little book that I almost never mention, because it looks horrible and it's got all full of typos. We're going to reissue it at some point. But it's called The Tale of Three Coaches, and I say we beats me any day, right? So we saw a prime example of this. I was talking about being in Houston at the getting to speak to the CIO and the CISO groups. And we were really honored to be there. We got just crazy great reviews. I may post this later, but from both of them. But I mentioned the FBI. There was a senior person there from the FBI.
Oh, wow.
And she had been given all of these awards about, just really significant stuff. So they're telling me this. And here's always the telltale sign that people like you and they respect you because other people were telling me about it. Oh, this is what she accomplished and what she did. And I would look at her and I would say, that is incredible. Wow, that is so great. And she would say, yeah, well, it wasn't me. There was a whole lot of other people involved, trust me. And I was like, yeah, I understand that and I get that. But man, but you led them. You got them to that. Well, it really wasn't me. And after about the third run at it, I realized she's never going to singularly own it, which to me, and that's why after about the third time I said, you know what I'm seeing right here is exactly why you got that award, because people must love you and would do anything for you because they've built that kind of team. Okay, what about companies that build in structures and settings that pit employees against each other in terms of winning, right? Like, hey, you're going to get rewarded as a sales department if you move as much product as possible.
Right.
Hey, you're going to get rewarded in inventory if you keep as little product as possible. So sales guy's out there busting his tail, right?
But can't they?
This is really kind of silos, though.
But no,
or
no.
two sales guys where they're competing against each other instead of saying, you sell more, that's great for the company. I sell more, we both sell more. But they kind of get in this zero-sum game where it's...
Yeah, but why couldn't the company offer the prize to both of them? If they both sold the same amount. If they both sold, it's like...
Spoken like a true millennial.
Sorry. I mean...
Wants everybody to get an
instead
award.
Instead of buying
I'm actually a big supporter of that.
Instead of buying the 5,000 watch gift, buy a two $2,000 watches and offer it to both guys if they can both meet the quota. Then you're getting double the quota. You're not having one guy say, he's so far ahead, I'll never make it. I'm never going to get it anyway, so why should I bother? Right?
Yeah, and I agree. Like if you've got a set certain metrics that set, let's say you got your sales team.
Right.
And you say to that sales team, hey, the top 10 performers next year are going to get to go to the Bahamas. Okay, we're going to go do something cool. You get a whole week with your family, so on and so forth. Instead of setting it up that way, because top 10 means guy, gal, number 11 doesn't get to go, but may have performed very well, or maybe not. What if instead you set metrics, and I'm sure some companies are doing this, where you say everybody on the sales team that hits over this amount is going to get to go on this trip, and so now people are pulling for each other. Hey, come on, man, make this call.
I want you
go
to go
check
with
on
me.
this thing. Yeah, we want to all get there together, and it could be a lot more profitable. So, 3 things to strengthen your team. Any ideas about what you would do to make teams the absolute best they can be?
Okay, they could lock arms and then we could all sing Kumbaya.
That is really solid. That's
Sorry, it was just funny. I was just.
that's just such a. People are taking notes right now. They've got their pen out. They're going like, ooh. Got to have that.
I think a good strengthening tool is to schedule non-work time for them to bond. You know what I mean?
Love it.
Like happy hours. Happy hours in the office. Bring in a margarita maker. I mean, on a Friday afternoon, and let's have some margaritas.
Or Monday afternoon if you want to.
Or Monday, but usually Friday because people trickle off home usually.
Yeah, so I love that. I just talked to a guy that I met coming out of the network bar. I'm going to mention them again a little bit later, but mentioned something. He said, yeah, you know what, we're taking this team day off and so forth. So, okay, Elise, we will try.
Said there were 3 things.
I said, what are 3 things? But I didn't actually have 3 because we like to do the show live and make it up. And I noticed that we're getting kind of short on time. We still have to do Martinized. So do you have any other suggestions for team?
Another way for them to strengthen teamwork? Well, I came up with one. It's your turn.
Okay. Make sure that everybody on the team knows what the other person is responsible for, what they're doing, or what their struggles are, to make sure there's clear communication. And everybody on the team ought to be able to describe what their teammate is working on, what challenges they're having, what kind of support they need, because that means they don't just know their little piece of the pie, but they really know the whole pie.
Now, and remember that this doesn't have to happen overnight. Now, a great strategy that I read, I want to say, I don't think it's Netflix, but I think maybe it is, I'm not sure. But there's a company there, in order to discover if everybody in the company is on the same team, on the same page, you stop a random employee, staff member in the elevator, and you say, what are the 3 most important projects the company is working on?
Big team. That's the big team.
If they can list all 3, good. If they can list them in order of priority, even better.
And if they can list them in order of priority and kind of what the status on them is and
yes,
why
and
they're
more
doing
details,
it, even better.
But if you can get started with people just knowing what everybody's doing, it makes all the difference. And then move into details, especially if you're starting out implementing, making sure people are aware and changing your culture. You know, you need to just start, you know.
So I love my team, by the way. Okay, so you ready to Martinize something?
I am.
Let's do it.
Martinize!
Okay, so this is something that happens every day in restaurants all over the world, and it is something
day and night.
Day and night, and it came to my awareness a number of years ago, many years ago. Actually, I walked into a macaroni grill, and I'm waiting at the host stand to be seated. And while I'm waiting there, the hostess had gone off and was seating somebody else, taking care of them. And so I'm just standing there. And what was fascinating to me was servers, bartenders, people, managers, everybody was coming by. And I thought in that moment, wouldn't it be awesome if everybody had the responsibility and the expectation, seat the guest, take care of them. That's what it's about. But they were so singularly focused that they were not really working as a team. So contrast that. By the way, I mentioned Macaroni Grill, which used to be Romano's Macaroni Grill, and I think he sold it at some point. I love Phil. So we were at the Network Bar the other night. I was doing a talk, and we had had a big, nice room full of people, and I didn't realize Phil was going to be there. So Phil came over to me before the deal.
It's a family night. Phil should be there.
So Phil,
friends and family.
Phil came over and shook my hand and said, "Don't screw it up." I was like, "Thanks, Phil."
Yeah, just a reminder.
So then I look out there, and there's Phil.
As if you could, anyway.
Here's Phil Romano, which, if you don't know him, what are you thinking? I mean, he's a restaurateur. He's just a business dude. He's the dude.
Baller.
And he actually started the Network Bar, but he's sitting out there with his son and a couple of his son's friends from Syracuse, so no pressure. Anyway, distraction, Macaroni Grill. So contrast that with the other night we're at Doc B's, a restaurant that just opened near us.
It was afternoon.
It was afternoon.
Weekend.
That's right. It was a
Saturday.
We went in. It was Sunday afternoon. I think we were having a Bloody Mary.
Bloody Mary day.
So we're in there, and the guy comes over and asks us, what do we want to drink and blah blah blah. And then he said, "Oh, okay, well, let me take care of that. Your server will be with you in a little bit." And then he came back over and took care of something else, and then again said, "Your server will be with you in just a little bit." And I stopped him and I said, "I think he's Travis." No, he was Tim. He was Tim. I said on the private video, I think Tim was the one we were talking to first. Anyway, Tim and Travis, both fantastic.
Well, if you're watching, shout out.
So I started talking. I said, whoa, hold on, dude. I said, it sounds like you're doing all this other guy's work, and just kind of laughed. And he said, no, not at all. He's tied up with some things. But he said, you know what? We actually have a policy around here and a training, and as part of our just who we are, that we don't want you waiting on us. We want to wait on you. And so everybody on the team can take your bill, go take care of it. They can bring your food. They can refill your drinks, run your credit card. Now, it's interesting to me, the tipping system is still the same. The server gets the tip, but they've so hardwired this team to serve the customer and to put ego aside. That was going to be one of my other killers, ego. But to put ego aside, or that's not my... So after we've had this amazing experience there, then we're sitting in another restaurant that will go unnamed because it was a great restaurant. I don't want to flame them. And the reality is that this happens in every other restaurant for the most part. We're sitting in there and you needed something. So
there's something minor. I just need a little more sauce.
There's nothing more irritating than when they bring your meal and the one thing you need, I need Tabasco sauce. I forgot to ask for that. Or I need a little bit, like in your case, I need some more of that good, yummy red sauce that's on there.
Right.
And what do you have to do? You're waiting. We've got people passing by.
I remember what our server.
Who's our
which
server?
One, is it that one? They're all wearing the exact same.
You knew which one ours
apron,
was.
and I was like.
But you can't because like servers get offended
It's a
if you
big
say,
restaurant, though.
hey,
They were
if you
far away.
ask somebody
I really
who
couldn't
is,
see like where she was. Like, is she over there? Is she over there? I'm like,
if you just ask somebody who's not your server, they're looking at you like,
let me get your server.
I always love that. I love that. Let me get your server. Instead, let me take care of that for you. So that's my Martinized. Every business, for sure, restaurants ought to start redoing, rejigging their thinking about that. Your job is there to take care of the customers, but it's not just a restaurant business. It's really every business.
right, but think about it. If the tip system is the same, right? What they've done in Dog Bees is they've actually reduced the chance that there's going to be a bad tip because now the customer is extremely happy because they're
Everybody
never late.
wins.
Everybody's helping them. So it's a win-win for everybody. So you could say if you're in the restaurant business that, well, I'm helping with their tables, I should get part of that tip. But they're gonna help you with your table, and they're all gonna help. See the teamwork? It's all gonna help push everybody.
How do you rally
Right.
around as a group to make sure you watch? I've been talking about this a lot when I speak, but you watch an ant colony at work and everybody's moving everywhere. They're not like, well, that's not my job. What are you going to do? Whether it's gathering food or defending the enemy against the enemy or whatever. So
Everything
that's my
is everyone's
Martinized.
job.
Everything is everyone's job. I actually have a buddy that's going to be in a book. I have a buddy who put that on the job description. He called me up one day and said, hey, Daren, is it cool if for this new company I'm starting, can I list everything as this top job description? I said, yes, because that really gets what we're going for here. So, man, we've just got, we're out of time, but we got so much to talk
so
about. So we'll just add it on
Day.
another show. By the way, little sneak peek, we may have a new segment coming. Company Culture Wars.
Yes,
Okay.
and we have tested it out recently. So if you haven't been
We
able
tested
to chime
it,
in,
and
it was
we were actually on our way to go get some. We're redoing our place on a major scale, conceptually and all of that. So we won't get into that.
I was
But we were
painting.
on our way. Yes, you were painting today, and you've got a
I'm
lot
gonna
more
paint
painting
today.
to do tonight.
I'm so excited.
After we go have a
I
little
am
fun
Van
on
Gogh.
Friday.
I am creating a masterpiece.
But so I just posted Home Depot versus Lowe's, and it was fascinating
Depot.
to hear the comments coming in, and I think Home Depot might have edged out, but there were a lot of Lowe's supporters as well. What was fascinating was that a lot of it hinged around customer service and the look and feel of the stores. Okay, so at any rate, we are thinking about launching a little segment. Chime in and let us know what you think, because this is a collaborative show, and we want your input.
Because
So
would not be where we are without you.
that's right. We could do the show, but if nobody was watching, how much fun would that not be?
That would not be
So,
fun.
big reminder, if you would, please, we're not going to do this every show, but because we're getting started, it's huge for the show. If you can go on, subscribe on YouTube, subscribe. If you like watching it, with video, YouTube, but also if you would subscribe on podcast on iTunes. By the way, it's on all the major podcast stations, but that's the big one. And subscribe, leave us your comments, give us a
Rave review.
a rave review, and we'll look forward to reading those. So we'll see you next week.
And tell them that you vote for the name change from with Daren Martin to with Elise.
So we'll see you next week on Company
kidding.
Culture with Elise Martin.
I'm just kidding.
Thank you.